All right. Welcome back to Myrna and Jenn Read the Apocrypha. Mm-hmm. And like we said, we're in Jubilee. Just a second. I need a drink.
And that's what Noah said.
I had a little tickle in my throat. Today we're going to forego telling a little bit about ourselves because we have some information that we need to expound on from last week.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the tickle's still there. And it comes from when we were talking about what happened between Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and of course Canaan.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of said last week that we didn't understand. This was just like he saw his dad naked, big freaking deal. Let's just move on. Why did Noah get so mad that he throws a curse on his grandson, which actually was not even born when this happened? And
it
so
seems it just seems so out of nowhere. Like, oh, you saw me naked and I cursed your child. And yeah, there were some suggestions that we brought up. It could have been because of him not having a garment upon him, and we took it at face value. But Myrna, what did we find?
Well, we went into a dive about what does this mean? What really is the Bible world talking about? Because like we said before, we are not scholars.
No.
We are not biblical scholars. We're scholars of the world, the ways of the world. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not even saying that we're women of the world. Excuse me. But so we went into the biblical world to find out what this all meant. Now, we found there's 4 options that people talk about what this means when Ham goes in and sees the nakedness of his father. So we're going to lay them all out. I'm going to share them with you, right?
Yep.
And then we're going to somewhat dissect them. We're not going to go deep in because we really don't have the information, the knowledge. It's just what we've heard from other people. Okay, so, but there's some things we have delved into, but it's not like we're going to be,
this isn't a master class.
Scriptures, okay?
No.
Okay, so the 4 options they talk about is that the first is simply what they kind of label as voyeurism. They saw his father naked. He saw his father naked. It kind of stimulated him, and he pleasured himself. He enjoyed the moment, whatever. Okay. And then, of course, he goes out and tells his brothers, and they're like, oh, my heck, we got to go cover him up, whatever, right? So that's the first one.
Option 1.
Okay. And second is that and this one, I don't even know where they get it, and I can't understand it. I don't know how they get there. But they're saying that he castrated his dad. Now, there's a problem I have with that. I'm not a guy, so I have no idea what it feels like down there. So where did I go? I asked my husband. I also didn't really grow up in a alcohol world either. So I don't know at what point drunkenness and passing out does for you. I mean, and I said to him, I said, if you were drunk and passed out and someone castrated you, would you stay asleep? And he said, oh no, you'd wake up and then you would pass out again from the pain of being castrated. Because you've seen guys actually get passed out by getting hit with a ball in that area. So
that's
come on.
True.
Or even get a knee in the area. So there's a reason why they wear cups when they play sports. Okay. It's painful and they can pass out from getting hit there. So he said you would pass right back out. And then I love my husband. He says, and then you'd get up and you'd kill him.
Probably.
That's my husband's view. So I have a hard time thinking he would have stayed asleep.
But when we go into it, maybe a little more, we'll show you maybe why they think it.
Well, I think it explains one part.
Yes, it explains a part.
And that part is where it says that he woke up and knew what his son did to him.
Yeah, immediately.
Okay. So that kind of makes sense. You wake up, you've been castrated, you're going to know. I'm sorry. You're kind of going to know. Right? Because also it's not like it's still going to be a nice clean little area. There's got to be blood places. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
That's all I got to say with that. I don't want to get too graphic, but
the thing is though, is that I could also see him coming up out of being blacked out because of all the pain and being upset and cursing someone. I could see that.
But can I say this?
Yes.
And I didn't say this before when we talked before we started, but if you want to put that out there, that he wakes up and he's so mad he curses someone, he would be in such a mad state that he wouldn't be able to think, I'm going to curse one of my grandchildren. I'm going to curse one of my grandchildren.
That hasn't been born yet.
That hasn't been born yet. Okay?
But I know his name.
No, I think the story's been compressed, okay?
I think it has been compressed.
You don't wake up
for people.
He would have woken up and cursed Ham at that moment. It wouldn't have been years down the road or 9 months even down the road when you don't even know this child is coming, right? It wouldn't have been that late that you would have cursed somebody if you just woke up and realized what happened and was mad. You would have cursed Ham right at that moment.
Yes,
there wouldn't have been
because
there wouldn't have been later.
Yeah, he obviously, if that interpretation is to be looked at, you could see that he, at least even if he was drunk and got woken up and passed out, he remembers that it was Ham because it was Ham's descendant that he cursed.
Yeah. Right. So that's number 2. I think it's a far-fetched, to be honest. I think you're really stretching.
I think that one's a far stretch.
Yeah.
And why would even Ham walk in and be like, I saw my father's nakedness. I'm going to castrate him. What is the motive for it?
Yeah. I don't know. Oh, but we forgot to say one of the reasons they think that Noah cursed Canaan is because he cursed Ham's 4th son because he prevented him from having a 4th son.
That he prevented Noah from having a 4th son.
Yeah. So that's their justification for him cursing Canaan. But I still think it's a huge stretch, and I think that you would pull a muscle trying to stretch that far, to be honest.
Agreed.
Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is that he and this one I'm not even sure I can say it without laughing because I think it's so funny. Because I think it's stupid that we even came to this place, but that he had sex with his dad.
Yeah, that one is homosexual relations. Okay.
I mean, and I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I'm going to say I think it's a group of people that want to justify it being okay to have same-sex relationships. And so they hijack a story in the Bible and use it for their gain. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
The crazy thing is that in this instance, even if that was the right one, that he saw his dad drunk, passed out, naked, and was like something exciting, it kind of goes with the first one being a little homosexual, right? That he got excited.
Yeah.
Has sex with his dad and then his child gets cursed.
Well, and then
it wasn't a good thing. So
then a year later, Dad curses his son, a year later or 9 months later or whatever. But why do you pick that child? Because you don't even have anything that justifies that he has anything to do with what happened.
Correct.
Right? Why do you choose a child down the road? And
why do you choose a child? Why do you choose a child? Why is Ham in this instance not the one that gets the curse?
Well, here's the deal. None of them. None of the scenarios. Ham gets.
None.
In trouble. None.
Yeah. It's always Canaan. So why?
And here's what I have to say to that. If I could have gone through life with never getting responsible for any of my choices, I don't think I'd still be in church. Because I got away with everything. How is this teaching Ham anything? It kind of does, because his posterity gets cursed. Okay, so it kind of does. I get that. But in reality, at that moment, he doesn't, there's no consequence for his actions until 9 months later.
Well, and when you actually look at this, wouldn't it be worse to curse his first son? Because back then it was through your first son that everything happened.
Yeah, because we learned last week that Canaan was Ham's last child.
Well, right? Last son. We only know about the son.
Last son, yeah. Sorry, last son. Okay. So there's three of them that I really think that we can throw out, because there's nothing that justifies Canaan being cursed.
Correct.
Okay. And I think that the fourth one is really what happened. Okay. So we're going to delve into that a little bit. Now, the wording is that he saw his dad's nakedness, his father's nakedness. Now, that is kind of synonymous a little bit with uncovering someone's nakedness. And what that means is having sex with someone. Now, if we go to Leviticus chapter 18, it kind of explains to us what this terminology means and where it takes us to by using those words in this discussion, in this story. So we start in verse 6 of chapter 18.
Yep.
It basically says that you're not supposed to have sex with anyone that you know, any kin. Okay. And it says, none of you shall approach to any that is near of kin to him to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord. So he's saying, don't have relations with anyone that you're related to, basically. And then he goes and he gives explanations of what that means. He says, the nakedness of thy father or the nakedness of thy mother shalt thou not uncover. She is thy mother, thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. The nakedness of thy father's wife shalt thou not uncover. It is thy father's nakedness. Nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father or daughter of thy mother, whether she be born at home or born abroad, even their nakedness shalt thou not uncover. The nakedness of thy son's daughter or of thy daughter's daughter, even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover, for theirs is thine own nakedness. Okay, now we know at that time the women were owned. It just was. We're not going to debate the issue. We're not going to complain about it. That's the way it was. Okay, so the men owned the women. So their wife's nakedness was their own nakedness because they owned them. Okay, so when it comes in here and says that he saw his dad's nakedness, his father's nakedness, that is saying that possibly that he had relationships with two possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
A sister or his mother.
Mm-hmm.
My own opinion, and I really can't explain it other than it feels better to me for it to be the mother than his sister. Because it says that they went in his father's tent. Okay. The tents there were like big tents, and then they were partitioned.
Yep.
Okay. And so there was a place for dad and mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what it's saying is they went into his tent. They went into his part of the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Why would the daughter be in his part of the tent? I don't understand. So to me, logically, it means his mom and that he had relations with his mother. Maternal incest is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I have gone to. Now, Jen,
mm-hmm.
You said you had a preference between the two, and what is that?
Well, for some reason, for me, I would prefer him to have slept with his sister than his mother, because I think it grosses me out less.
Okay.
Though both are a problem, I don't know why. I don't know why I feel that way. But I do think in this situation, because he went into his father's tent and stuff, that it's more likely to be his mom. But there's a part of me that really hopes it was his sister instead.
Well, and I think for me, another reason I pull it to be the mom is that we have other stories in the Bible where sons of kings or sons of people with lots of land and inheritance have tried to what's the word? Bypass, I guess is the better word. That I know what I'm talking about. Usurp is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
Their brothers getting everything.
Yes.
By having a child or having relations with mom and having a kid, they're able to get twice the inheritance because, it's her child and therefore kind of dad's child, but yet it's his child, so he gets more inheritance. So he kind of gets more of what he wants, right? And so we have that in the Bible. So some reason there is an implication that Ham, and I think it's because he's not the oldest child, is a little jealous, and that he tries to win more of the inheritance by doing this is another thing that some of the scholars talk about. And so for me, that's another chalk up to it
kind of
most likely being
that.
mom rather than someone else. Either one is not good.
Either one isn't good. And the piece de resistance here is, I wonder what could have happened in that sexual relationship to curse Canaan.
Well, what do you mean by that? I guess I'm lost by what do you mean by that?
No, what I mean is, yes, that actually explains Canaan. That one of them got pregnant, had Canaan, and that's why he got cursed. Is because he is a bastard child. That is the only part of being that upset and cursing Canaan that to me makes sense.
Yeah, and it says that they think the reason he cursed them is that if he curses that grandson to be a slave to the brothers, then he does not get any inheritance. He gets none because he is enslaved to the others. So basically, Dad says, "Oh, you tried to do this, Ham? Here you go. I'll fix it.
Yep.
Right.
I will fix it.
And so that's kind of why it happens the way it does. Now, like I said, I think this story has been shortened into, little verses that say this and this happened, but they don't explain that. I don't think he woke up and said, "Cursed be Canaan."
Right.
Because I don't think he really knew anything that happened yet. And I think we'll have to go down further, or maybe even another Apocrypha where we might find out
a little more
how they found out that something came from this relationship with mom, right? Even if Noah knew that he, quote, knew mom, like they say in the Bible terms, he wouldn't know to curse a child, because we don't even know if one was conceived because of the situation.
Right.
So it's down the road that dad chooses to curse him. I don't think it happened when he just woke up like this says, because you have a person doing the narrative, which we are assuming is Moses from what we've been told, that they're just doing this narrative, but we don't know all of the pieces. It's like they're telling the story and we're supposed to already know parts of the story.
Right.
So we understand that later he curses this child named Canaan because they figure it out.
Yes.
Right. Because in this story, it all says that Ham is the father of Canaan, but it doesn't say anything about who mom is. And it doesn't say that he is raised as Noah's. So no one knows.
Right.
Obviously, he doesn't, if this is correct, he doesn't stay with mom and dad. He's raised by Ham, I guess. So we don't really even know all of that. So it's like we don't know the whole story, but I'm pretty sure he didn't stand up and say, "Cursed be Canaan, because you're going to have a kid with this situation and you're going to name it Canaan, so we're going to curse it."
Yeah.
I don't think he was
prophesying. Prophetic. Yeah, prophetic.
I don't think he was prophesying that you are to name this child that comes from this relationship Canaan, and he will be cursed. I don't think it was a prophetic thing that happened. I think a lot of it was out of anger. When first it was found out that mom was pregnant.
Well, and
second, we don't know how they figured out that actual child came from Ham, because mom and dad probably had sex around the same time. So how do we know? Right. So there's so much that we don't know, but yet we're going to lay it on Canaan now. It's down the road.
Well, the other part of this that makes sense in taking the wording in this direction, with Ham having had sexual relations with his mother, is the fact that what is one of the next things that Ham does? He leaves and starts his own city.
Yes.
You take this situation and go, that makes total sense. Can you imagine the awkwardness and the discord that is being created because there is a child on the way, that your son is the father and your mom's going to bear it? Like, I'd want out of it.
Well, can I say this? I don't think he left until after the child was born. That's my opinion. I think he saw how his son was being treated.
I agree.
Whenever they decided that it was his son, right? I don't know how that happened, but they decided it was his son. And then he saw how grandpa was treating him. And then he said, "I'm out, man." And he took his wife and probably promised her to name the city after her so that she would go with him, because he was tired of it.
Right.
And, I mean, what woman wants to pack up home and leave, right? No one does. So maybe that was his promise to her, so she'd go.
Well, and because of the flood, not because of the flood occurred because of all of the iniquity that was happening, and a lot of it was problems with fornication because of the law of chastity about being only with the person you're married to.
Yeah.
And to then have the flood happen and this iniquity happen to Noah in his immediate family must have been great. And I can see that this would be upsetness and anger to curse Canaan. And at the same time, once that child is born, can you see him as just a child of God? Or is it forever going to see him and be like, and that's because Ham fornicated with my wife? It would be hard. I always praise men who their wives have been raped, or maybe they've cheated and the child is not theirs and they know it, and that man still raises the child as his own. That to me is like impressive.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Yeah. It can happen. However,
it's living your life like it's not about you, right? You're worried about that child and making sure that child has a good home. Yes. And you letting go of your feelings and loving that child enough that they feel like they have a place to stay and loved and cared for. If you were to send them away, you don't know what's going to happen to that child.
Right.
And I think a person who has a real heart and really cares about people are not going to put a child in that situation. They're going to say, okay, well, he did come from you. We're going to keep him here and we're going to do our best and we're going to love him and we're going to help him have a good start in life, because what a bad start to, not have dad around. So I'm just going to step in and take care of it.
The thing too is, before we read this part here, it was don't drink of the blood or don't eat of the blood of animals, as well as thou shalt not murder. And man should not take man's life. So you have all of these rules in place where what am I supposed to do? This child's now born. What are we to do with this situation? And families in the modern world struggle with this. And here we have Noah being a righteous man enough that God had him and his sons and their families survive the flood.
Well, remember when we read that part, he said he saved Noah because of the righteousness of his sons.
Yes.
Okay. So we know that it wasn't Noah's righteousness that he was chosen. So Noah is in my thinking, okay. I'm not dissing Moses. I'm not dissing Noah. He did a good thing for God. And I'm sure he repented for whatever he's done wrong. But to me, this shows a little bit of maybe why God might have chose somebody else. But because of the righteousness of his sons, Noah was the choice. Okay. And then after time of everything, Ham makes a bad choice. And Noah doesn't step up. I think it kind of is a show of why possibly Noah wasn't chosen, because it was him to do the ark and all of those things. He was chosen because of the righteousness of his sons. I think that's a telling thing when you see the way he treats this child.
Yeah, I'm looking back here to quote that part. And it says, I'm looking for it.
Yeah, which one is that?
I think it's in chapter 5, I believe, verse 19. And as for all those who corrupted their ways and their thoughts before the flood, no man's person was accepted save that of Noah alone. For his person was accepted in behalf of his sons, whom God saved from the waters of the flood on his account. For his heart was righteous in all his ways, according as it was commanded regarding him, and he had not departed from aught that was ordained for him.
Okay, so maybe I've misunderstood that.
I'm interested, though, in what does it mean to be accepted in behalf of? On behalf of, in behalf of. It's absolutely nonsense by others. I'm trying to find where that phrase is also stated and what it means as like an idiom. So on someone's behalf, it means as a representative of someone, or in the US, in behalf of someone, or in someone's behalf for the benefit of someone, in support of someone. So for his person was accepted in behalf or in support of his sons, I guess. Some of the old language is tough. Everyone knows this. I'm trying to get back to Jubilee here. Come on.
Okay, so a representative of someone, a teacher was the word behalf of. Maybe what God is saying is that he chose Noah because he had sons that could perpetuate the priesthood.
That would move it forward, that he had taught them.
Because
he needed more than one person.
Well, he needed more men.
Yes, he did.
I hate to say it, but he didn't need the women.
Well,
he needed them, but not for leadership or for important roles other than having children, which
we need to have children and repopulate.
Which really isn't like considered an important role, which is interesting because they wouldn't exist if they weren't.
Yeah, this idea that women aren't important is so odd to me because of you wouldn't be here if you didn't have a mother. So just gonna say, I just find it really interesting here that then Noah has this and he said Noah alone,
right,
in that verse. And so he has these sons that he's taught. But in Jubilee here, as I was looking for Noah, the actual verse where it talks, God talks about Noah's character. If you remember, he then talks about they have all of these festivals and all of these things that they are to do. But the moment Noah died, his sons are like, yeah, not doing it.
Yeah.
So,
well, people change.
People do change. And also, they did it out of respect because they learned to honor their father and what he asked of them. But they didn't take it into their hearts and continue.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Interesting because I feel like this is Noah family drama.
Right.
I feel like a little telenovela here.
I think that is one thing that we need to remember is that when God makes a choice and chooses somebody, it means that he knows that that person can accomplish what he needs to have done. And that at that moment, he is righteous enough to do that. Now, that doesn't mean that that person can't make changes later. It doesn't mean that they don't have their agency to choose not to do it. It doesn't mean they're going to be perfect the whole time. It means at that moment they have all the criteria that God needs to have them do that job or that responsibility. And people can change. And I think this is what we're seeing is God had a hope in Noah's sons. And Noah was teaching his family right. So therefore, at that point, they were a justifiable family to have build an ark and move over and start over again, start family race over again, human race over again. But that doesn't mean that forever those sons are going to do what their father asks. They still have their agency. But it's at that time and that moment that you are worthy and able to do that calling or that thing that you're asked of you.
So the other part of this that was interesting to me, because I had to look it up, is are the Canaanites that are mentioned a lot in the Bible, is that actually related to this son Canaan? And the answer is yes. They're named after him. And so I found this scripture, and where did it just go? Here we go. In Genesis, and I am looking something up. Usually I read from the King James version of the Bible. This is the New International Version, Genesis 17:8.
Okay.
But this is where you get, it says, the whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. This is kind of the stranger in a strange land feel to me, where you now reside as a foreigner. It kind of takes on a new meaning to me if Canaan was a bastard child. Like, he now has a people, he ends up with a people, and they end up kind of some being nomadic, some being more settled. But it's this land, and it's that land that the Israelites are to inhabit, flowing with milk and honey. But it's all in the namesake of Canaan. And the Canaanites were known to be kind of debaucherous people.
Right.
So I find that this idea of just saying it in that way of being a foreigner, because I bet you that would be what Canaan felt. I am a foreigner in this family. I really don't have a place.
Right.
And taking that into the world, I could see a lot of people who have childhood trauma, a lot of them, not all people, can get into problems with alcohol and addictions and lots of other things in our modern society because of that trauma. And I'm like, oh, if he was really kind of rejected, that would be a problem from his birth almost.
Absolutely.
So I'm like,
so would you not reject the church, right? This love way of life, right? It's not just a church. That's their way of life.
Correct. It's their way of life. Yep.
They didn't have a political system. That was their way of life, right? Wouldn't you reject that when you've been treated the way you've been treated and then go and do your own thing?
Whatever you wanted. And yet, the interesting thing is it's almost like God wanted to reclaim that.
Yeah.
He wanted
to give him a second chance, I think. He wanted to give Canaan a second chance.
Because the idea of them going into the land of Canaan, it was about finding the Israelites were looking for a place of rest, of restoration.
Yeah.
Is there some symbology there, a parable almost, of a way of thinking about it, that he never gives up on anyone?
Yeah.
And the place that you think isn't right for you, God's like, I can have it be good. It doesn't matter where you start from. I can make it well.
Right. Yeah.
Like, of all the places the Lord could have sent the Israelites, it now makes me ask this question more. Why the Canaanites? And the only thing that comes to me is now hearing this part of it is this place of restoration. He could restore all things.
Yeah.
It's a little crazy.
Yeah. Well, he never gives up on us. And
no.
I think that our society right now has forgotten that. Mm-hmm. I think we've fallen ourselves into the space of the children in the wilderness, where we, think he's not there. Unless we get fed every day.
Yes. By him. Miraculously.
And so I think our society now is simply like, if I don't get it right this moment, he's not there.
Right.
He's left me. He's left me high and dry. Mm-hmm. When in reality, he never leaves us. Right. We leave him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I just thought it was important that we delved into this, because I kind of, after we got done with our video, I felt bad. I'm just going to lay it out there. I felt bad because I kind of said, I don't get it. He was just naked. It was not a big deal. And I took it as not important. When the law of chastity is very important. And I felt bad that I kind of just, threw it out the window and said, there's no big deal. I don't know why he got so upset. Now I get why he got upset. And there's little bits and pieces that you can see that might be even underlying all of this, where Noah's like, I have a son who's turning on me, who is not satisfied with what he gets being the second oldest. He wants more, and he's did me wrong. And I need to take care of that. And I thought he was just a stinker pot dad. And so I felt like it was important that we delved into what we learned. Because when we ended, we had a discussion and we both were like, I think there was more to this than what we saw. And so we took some time to do some investigating into understanding. And we thought we needed to bring that to you so that you understood that we are really trying to learn.
Yes.
We are really trying to understand this. Do we believe every bit of it? No.
No.
But what I am believing and understanding is that God is in these documents.
Yes.
And what I did not know, and you taught me today, Jen, is that this Book of Jubilees came from the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yes.
And I remember, I think it was President Oakes that gave the talk about new scripture coming. And he said, he specifically mentioned the Dead Sea Scrolls. And he said that he hopes that we will not set new scripture aside. And he specifically mentioned the Dead Sea Scrolls and treat them as some of our, I don't remember if he used the word enemies or other religious sects or people treated our Book of Mormon, that we don't treat theirs that way, and that there is good in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I was remembering that when you said that today, and I was like, okay, so there is some good in this Jubilees that we should be trying to find. Whether we're going to find it all right now, I don't know, but we'll need to reread with the Spirit and learn and grow to understand better the deeper story that is behind what we read in the Bible.
Yeah. So, Myrna, you have an excellent memory because it was an Elder Oaks talk. And it was given in April of 2006, called All Men Everywhere. And in it, there is a part here. And saying that the Book of Mormon teaches that all these groups, meaning children in various places, nations, tongues of people, will have the writings of the others. We conclude from this that the Lord will eventually cause the inspired teachings he has given to his children in various nations to be brought forth for the benefit of all people. This will include accounts of the visit of the resurrected Lord to what we call the lost tribes of Israel, and his revelations to all the seed of Abraham. The finding of the Dead Sea Scrolls shows one way this can occur.
Yeah.
That's from a prophet of God.
Yeah. And I do remember Elder Holland, just a couple of months ago, did I don't know whether it was Instagram or a Facebook post, where he talked about that there is new writings coming and that we need to learn, grow, and understand what we have right now so that we are ready for what comes. So that we can add that to what we have. But that we need to, I use the term, I don't think he used the term, but devour what we already have.
Right. That we need to be.
I don't think we really do that like we probably should.
Well, I've read the whole Bible, both the Old Testament and New Testament before. I read the Book of Mormon. We'll be studying Doctrine and Covenants this next year as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I have to constantly ask myself, do I devour it? Now, do I think that I should become a monk and do that, 12 hours of my day?
No.
I think that's excessive. Should I only do 5 minutes? If I want, I don't know what I'm seeking in 5 minutes.
Right.
But this, going through the Apocrypha, I find myself more and more going into the scriptures, into the King James Version of the Bible, into Genesis and these other books, and actually really reading that and comparing it and what I believe that prophets, modern day prophets, have revealed and bringing it all together to find truth. That's me digging in.
Yeah.
And I love that we've come across a couple of things here, especially this one was important enough because all it took was saying, uncover thy father's nakedness. And it was like, and yeah, pretty much means sexual sin. How am I supposed to know that? None of these it wasn't originally written in English. It's a way of speaking an idiom, we have lots of them in English, and it's hard for other people coming in, learning our language to understand them.
Right.
So it's going to happen the other way. So I'm like, that is not what I've talked about in seminary growing up or what I talked about in Sunday school or never had heard it. And yet it was easily accessed. It's one of the first things that came up.
Yeah, I don't believe I've ever had this discussion in a church setting at all about this scripture. And I taught Old Testament, but I don't believe I taught this lesson because it was with somebody else. We switched off, right? Because I think that I would have delved into that space because that wording is not easily understood, right? I think that because I didn't teach my class, this is what we did, blah, 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 blah. You know, we didn't.
Right.
It was a discussion. And I bet somebody in that class would have brought it up if I had said something, because we went through it. It was funny. The bishop was like, I really love coming to your Sunday school class. It's really hard for me to get my job done on Sunday because I usually did it in between, but I love coming to your Sunday school class. Because it was a discussion and everybody would add. I didn't sit up there and just spew crap out.
Right.
It's not crap. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Spew the lesson out. I facilitated a discussion, and that's what I like, because I don't know everything.
Right.
And so I love to just say, well, what about this? And we discuss it. Okay, so what about this? And we discuss it. And we were going through scriptures. And so I think this would have come up, but I didn't teach this lesson. And I kind of wish I had, because now I feel like, how old am I? And I never knew this was what this wording meant. I just thought it was like he was ashamed because he saw somebody naked. But you have to remember that they probably it wasn't abnormal to see people naked, I wouldn't think. No. Because, well, maybe so, because they did have their coats of skin. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't see it being a body shaming type society yet.
Right. And like our first thought was it had something to do with the fact that he was naked, and that meant he wasn't wearing his garments, the coats of skin that God had prepared for Adam and Eve, and that had been passed on. Because he had, the priesthood obviously had the ordinances and stuff, because we find here in Jubilee that he's passing those on to his grandchildren, his grandsons.
Well,
and it's easy to go, oh, okay, that could be it. But again, it didn't fit the punishment of Canaan. So again, Myrna and I, if you don't mind me speaking for you, we're not saying this is the truth.
Yeah.
We're saying this is new knowledge of what that phrase could mean, as well as it fits everything more completely than any other evidence supports.
Yeah.
This has the most evidence for that. This is the likely scenario of why everything ended up transpiring.
And I think that you also look at what his brothers did.
Yes.
And how they covered, either it was both of them or even just mother up.
Correct. Why they would be backwards, not looking at her and placing a robe upon her.
Because we know all it takes for most men, I'm just going to say this, is
you say it,
a look, and then some desires of sexual actions will happen in their bodies.
Yes.
So even for them to just look at mom could possibly put them in the same space that Ham ended up being. And so they covered her up without looking on purpose, I believe. Because they were trying to be righteous men. And they knew that even just looking upon mom might do the same thing to them as it did to Ham. And so they are trying to take care of mom and dad. Even, dad could have possibly been passed out right there too. Mom and dad could have possibly had relations, because that happens often when you're drunk.
Yes.
And then Ham comes in and he gets, what do you call it? Gets the feels and does it with mom. So it can have been that also. And so basically they're covering them both up and walking away. But it makes sense as to why they did it that way. It makes sense as to why Canaan was cursed. All of these things make sense to put mom in the place, even above a sister.
Yes, I agree. And the other thing I just realized too is if he was clothed and the nakedness is about his wife, it's understandable why when he woke up, he knew immediately what must have happened. He might not have known who.
That is true.
But his wife was naked. That wasn't me.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So he would know. So it really does fit so well.
Almost everything. It fits almost everything there.
Everything. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. That's good, Jen. I didn't even think about that. You're right. But what's interesting is we don't know what he did at that moment. Right? Mm-hmm. Because we know it had to have taken time before he cursed Canaan. There's no way he just did it right then. And but how did he know it was Ham? Right? Well, there had to have been a family discussion. There had to have been a discussion, at least with mom.
Yes, that mom knew it was Ham. Mom knew it was Ham.
So there had to have
having
been
that combo. Mm-hmm.
And then somehow, when the child is born, they had to have known it was Ham's child. Mm-hmm. So there's so many things that we still don't know about the story, to be quite honest. But for us, and if anybody else finds anything else that fits better than what we have found, please put it in the notes.
Oh,
let us know.
Please.
Come, bring it to us. We want to understand better these things that we are reading. And we want to understand them in a way that will bring us to a more perfect knowledge of the gospel and of the scriptures. Mm-hmm. So we're not saying that we got it figured out. Don't listen to anything else. No. But if you have something that makes more sense than what we have said, please let us know. Put it in the comments. And if you like what we are doing here in reading these Apocrypha, and if there's a specific one you want us to read when we get done with Jubilee, which is, let me tell you, 50 chapters. So it might be a little while. But if there's one you want us to read next, please put it in the notes.
Yeah.
Ask us to read something. And if you like what we're doing, hit the like button, subscribe.
Right.
Help us to come out so that other people can find us. And share in this growing and understanding of some scripture that for some reason people felt was too unsafe for the standard people to read. Mm-hmm. Now, as I've read it, I can kind of understand if you are not solid in the gospel, I tell you, the watchers are going to throw it for you.
The watchers are going to throw it.
So it's not for everybody. I agree. No. I agree. Mm-hmm. But there is so much here that can bridge some gaps that we have in our understanding about the gospel and about how this world was made and how it was, how life began. And it's just, I'm learning a whole lot and I'm really, really enjoying it. That's what I'm trying to say. So like, subscribe, come be with us again. We will finish off chapter, is this 7?
7? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, chapter 7 next week. We had to throw this one in because we felt it was really, really important to delve into this. And so that's what we did. I hope you liked it. But
yes.
Anyway, and as we always say, the Apocrypha rules. Come back next week.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.